Okay, good morning, everyone. It's exactly 9 o'clock. I see that people are still entering and coming into the meeting. But in the interest of everyone's time, we're going to go ahead and get started. A couple housekeeping items. This is a closed meeting. If at any time you'd like to communicate with any of us, please put any remarks in the chat. It will be a muted meeting except for our presenters. So again, if you have any questions, please put them in chat. We'll get to them as soon as we can. And potentially at the end of this session, we'll do questions and answers. So with that, welcome everyone. My name is Lynn Freed. I'm the Executive Director at Finger Lakes Workforce Investment Board. We are your local workforce development board in the Finger Lakes region of New York State, which consists of Ontario, Wayne, Seneca, and Yates counties. This morning, we have from the Office of General Services, Commissioner Moy, who will be presenting on the governor's executive budget overview. Commissioner Moy was appointed Commissioner of the New York State Office of General Services by Governor Hochul in October 2021 and was unanimously confirmed by the New York State Senate in February 22. As Commissioner, she also serves as a member of Governor Hochul's cabinet. Under Commissioner Moy's leadership, the Office of General Services is implementing a comprehensive strategic plan to improve how the agency operates, making it more data-driven, sustainable, and responsive. She's launched a new division of resiliency and sustainability to meet statewide climate goals, which include converting the state's light-duty fleet to all zero-emission vehicles by 2035, reducing greenhouse gas emissions 85% by 2050, and adapting the Office of General Services assets and operations to the increasing impacts of climate change. Commissioner Moy is also driving improvements in how the state utilizes and maintains its state assets, infrastructure, and facilities. She is ensuring the Office of General Services is taking the steps necessary to support Governor Hochul's efforts to put underutilized and surplus state property to productive use. She is also leading efforts to modernize the state's operations, including capital design and construction initiatives, e-procurement systems, and leveraging New York's immense buying power to reduce government costs and achieve the state's crucial environmental and economic goals. Under Governor Hochul's leadership, Commissioner Moy oversaw the Office of General Services establishment of the state's new Office of Language Access to ensure New Yorkers with limited English proficiency have access to the state's vital programs and services in their primary languages. Before coming to the Office of General Services, Commissioner Moy served as the Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer at Public Health Solutions, Chief Operating Officer at the New York State Office of the Attorney General, Chief Strategy Officer at Brooklyn Public Library, Deputy Chief of Staff and Senior Policy Advisor at the New York City Mayor's Office. She received her BA and MS from the University of Rochester, and she resides in the Capital Region with her husband and children. Commissioner Moy, thank you very much. We welcome you to the Finger Lakes region, and we look forward to your presentation on the governor's overview of the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. I appreciate the warm welcome. And for all of you, thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this conversation. One item of housekeeping, we have with us Liz Morbido, who's a regional representative from the governor's office. So my agency has a wide swath of responsibilities. I'm going to be able to answer however many questions are within my immediate jurisdiction, things that I may be aware of relative to the other teams, but Liz is really your advocate. So as you need to find additional data points around what's in the budget, what may be also things that you'd like to raise up as challenges or concerns or things that you want to applaud. Liz is going to be the person who helps you with that. So I just want to make sure that I highlight her. She's a great asset and a real champion for the region. Now, I also want to thank the Finger Lakes Workforce Investment Board and the Executive Director, Lynn Freed, again, as well as Chairperson Jennifer DeVault, for providing this virtual forum for all of you to hear about the 2024-2025 executive budget proposal. And under Governor Kathy Hochul's leadership, which I've been profoundly honored to work with her over the past 2 years, New York State is stronger, it is healthier, and it is safer than it was 2 years ago when she became governor. But she knows that there's more work to do. New York is our future, and our future is brighter than ever. Now, the budget itself is $233 billion as opposed to the fiscal 2025 state budget, which is a pretty significant budget for the state of New York. It is a $6 billion increase, about 4.5% year over year, which is a significant budget that goes to many of the things that the governor identifies as priorities, and many of us identify as priorities within our community and within state government. The executive budget maintains principal reserves of 15% of state operating funds. That spending is essential and has been one of the governor's priorities to make sure that we can protect essential services in the event of an economic downturn. I've heard her say this many times, that when you're managing your own household budget or an organization, you want to make sure that you're able to weather all the challenges that might take place. And we know in the state of New York that there have been many unexpected twists and turns. So the purpose of those reserves are to have a dedicated fund that can help us to manage any risks that exist in the financial plan and our future costs. Her priorities for this year, and you'll see this throughout the budget itself, is to take on and address the categories of crime, continue to rebuild our mental health system, to focus on children and families, and improve the affordability for all New Yorkers. She's also prioritized advancing healthcare initiatives and ensuring that we are economically competitive so that the state can continue to grow the economy, attract and retain families. You'll also see built into the budget itself a priority on infrastructure, ensuring that the bridges and the roads and all of the infrastructure items across the state that have been at times neglected, that we're investing in them. We're going to continue to combat climate change because certainly the changing weather has impacted our communities, and we want to make sure that we are building a more resilient and sustainable future for our children. We're investing in education and Medicaid, and we're looking to address the migrant crisis, which certainly has been a budgetary strain and something the governor has put a significant amount of work and focus on. And we are continuing to make progress on housing, because housing is one of the ways that we can best ensure that our communities are healthy and retain children as they grow up. Now, the executive budget also is focusing on crime. It includes targeted public safety investments to keep New Yorkers safe and to improve quality of life. These investments are focused on very specific categories of crime, including property theft and domestic violence. The comprehensive public safety funding plan builds on historic investments to proven gun violence prevention programs and in the criminal justice system. That includes a $4.8 billion allocation, a 45% increase from 2022. Now, I want to talk through a handful of those highlights. One is ensuring that we are making investments that protect the public. The executive budget includes targeted public safety investments that keep New Yorkers safe and improve the quality of life. These investments are focused on those categories of retail theft, $40 million, funding for domestic violence, which, as we know, some of the reports that were taking place during the pandemic and even through now have increased dramatically. So $40 million are allocated within our budget. There also are historic investments in those gun prevention programs and hate crimes, $35 million to address those rises. Mental health has been one of the governor's top priorities over the past 2 years, and you'll see it as a theme, not just in this year's budget, but of all the budgets that she's proposed since she's become governor. Mental health and decades of disinvestment in mental health have had a very devastating effects in all communities. And as a result, too many vulnerable New Yorkers are slipping through the cracks. Governor Hochul will ensure that communities and individuals facing serious mental illness have the resources and the respect needed to lift themselves up and those around them. Now, the executive budget provides several additional supports for people with mental illness who are involved in the criminal justice system, including establishing a team within OMH, the Office of Mental Health, that will work with mental health courts and providers to ensure that individuals are connected to the services that they need. The budget also includes $6.2 million to provide mental health specialists and peers in mental health courts. $2.8 million to provide housing and support for individuals with mental illnesses, experiencing homelessness, and or involved in the criminal justice system, and $9.6 million to enhance and expand the specialized forensic assertive community treatment or FACTS teams, which will ensure and provide support for individuals with serious mental illnesses in the community. Those are just examples of some of those larger investments. The $24 million that's set aside for justice-related programs that address for street homelessness and those supportive housing units, all critical investments by the governor. It also calls for $55 million that are being set aside for 200 new inpatient beds. Now, this executive budget continues to build on that investment by expanding capacity to care for people with mental illness, for providing an additional 200 inpatient beds, and it's a multi-year program. The funding is going to cover 125 state-operated inpatient beds, including 15 for children and adolescents, 85 for adults, and 25 forensic, and 75 transition to home beds. And of course, governors prioritize youth mental health services to the tune of $45 million. Governor Hochul believes that the youth mental health crisis demands nothing short of our full attention and commitment to resources. She knows that we need a comprehensive approach to youth mental health and to help the children who are hurting right now. After convening New York's first ever Youth Mental Health Summit in 2023, Governor Hochul is recommitting her efforts to help struggling kids and teenagers. There's also $67 million to combat the opioid epidemic. Now, the executive budget reflects the governor's priority to expand available services, improve access to care, and protect vulnerable individuals. Proposed actions for the mental hygiene agencies build on prior investments in mental health, targeted efforts to address the opioid crisis, and continued support for community-based services, including residential programs. Sorry, that was a sneeze. Apologize. And of course, education, a top priority for the governor and for all of us in the administration. The executive budget reflects the governor's commitment to education with an increase of school aid of $825 million statewide to $35 billion. And right here in the Finger Lakes region, increasing $26 million to $2.61 billion. It reflects her commitment to education, supporting students, teachers, and schools with essential resources for a bright future. And following historic increases in school aid over the past 3 years, the executive budget maintains the state's key investments in education and increases annual school aid by $825 million. That's a 2.4% increase for a record total of $35.3 billion. Additionally, the executive budget includes the governor's Back to Basics reading program to ensure that school districts utilize evidence-based best practices in their reading instruction. Now, this is a great demonstration, and you can see the amount of investment that's been happening by the governor in schools. This is the school aid executive budget changes, and you can see between 1984 and 2024, the amount of money that the governor has invested in education. In fact, it's a $5 billion increase over the last 2 years into our schools statewide. There's also $10 million are set aside to train 20,000 teachers on Back to Basics reading programs. Now, the governor is taking very bold action to respond to the state's literacy crisis. I know for many of you who are parents or are very invested in the schools, we know that reading proficiency is so important for our kids. Our New York students have fallen behind in basic reading and writing proficiency, and we have to address it. It's only been exacerbated by the pandemic. Students who do not achieve proficiency by the end of 3rd grade are 4 times more likely to drop out of school, with dropout rates even more pronounced for students of color and students from disadvantaged backgrounds. With her Back to Basics reading program, Governor Hochul is turning the page on how we teach our youngest New Yorkers to read and bringing our state's curriculum in line with nationally accepted best practices. Higher education has also been a top priority for the governor, with $207 million set aside for SUNY and CUNY operations. The executive budget proposes $1.2 billion in new capital funding for SUNY and CUNY, and includes a $1.05 billion set aside to maintain and preserve campus facilities and to make strategic investments, and $154 million for community college. That means more great funding for great local institutions like SUNY Geneseo, SUNY Rockport, and the Finger Lakes and Monroe community colleges. Healthcare, also a significant investment and a priority for the governor. you'll see within the budget an 11% increase in that funding while saving $1 billion on Medicaid. Governor Hochul believes that every New Yorker deserves access to high quality, affordable health care. She's making nation-leading investments and bold policy choices to protect public health and ensure all New Yorkers can access the care that they need to lead full lives, full and healthy lives. Federal funding totaling $6 billion are set aside in this budget for services, hospitals, and healthcare workers. The governor is making nation-leading investments and bold choices to protect public health and ensure all New Yorkers can access the care they need to live those full, healthy lives. Now, for those of you who have been following, on January 9th, 2024, the New York State did receive approval from the federal government on a groundbreaking Medicaid 1115 Medicaid waiver amendment. And that's going to enhance our healthcare system. Now, part of this waiver, New York will significantly expand coverage for health-related social needs for Medicaid beneficiaries, those social determinants that are going to impact health, the largest Medicaid health-related social needs investment in the country. To stabilize and transform the state's healthcare system, Governor Hochul announced a bold healthcare agenda that includes continuing aggressive efforts to combat the opioid crisis and support individuals struggling with addiction, expanding affordable healthcare options throughout the New York State of health, and better access to primary care, and supporting providers by launching the Healthcare Safety Net Transformation Program and strengthening cybersecurity. Economic development has also been a key focus for the governor, and our community investments, business development programs, and workforce initiatives are all geared towards making sure that our state continues to be a place where workers and families can achieve their New York dream. Through the governor's commitments to revitalizing our business districts, driving innovation, strengthening worker protections, and preparing our communities for the jobs and careers of the future, the governor is continuing to work to build out a 21st century economy right here in the Empire State. And that includes the Empire AI Consortium, a $250 million 10-year investment of a 10-year, $275 million investment. Now, this 2025 executive budget includes that funding for Empire AI Consortium, which is a partnership of New York's public and private research institutions. The goal is to establish a state-of-the-art artificial intelligence computing center that will promote research and development. In addition to capital grant funding proposed in the executive budget, Empire AI will be supported with $125 million from private partners and $25 million from the State University of New York, or SUNY. $500 million, $500 million is set aside for a hub for advanced chip research at Albany Nanotech. $200 million for 4 workforce development centers along the I-90 or on-ramp. Now, to meet the increasing demand for high-skilled workers, which I know many of you are very focused on in your organization, the budget is providing $200 million in new and existing capital and other resources to expand and to support the launch of the One Network for Regional Advanced Manufacturing Partnerships, or on-ramp. The One Network program for regional advanced manufacturing programs is organized to create workforce development centers in 4 high-impact locations across upstate New York. It builds on the governor's commitments to preparing New Yorkers for the jobs of tomorrow with several proposals to strengthen workforce development across New York State. On-ramp offers credentials and training related to advanced manufacturing, and it focuses on providing opportunities for disadvantaged populations. Now, this program will focus on regions in upstate New York, along the I-90 corridor from the Buffalo, Syracuse, Rochester Tech Hub to Albany, modeled on Buffalo's Northland Workforce Training Center. On-ramp is intended to catalyze partnerships between employers, educational institutions, community organizations, and state and local governments. Each center will build on the skills of the local labor pool, connect employers with the skilled workers that they need, and develop long-lasting economic on-ramps, training, apprenticeships, and employment for disadvantaged populations. Now, this on-ramp program will also tie very nicely with the designation of Rochester, Buffalo, and Syracuse as a federal tech hub. Announced this past October, the designation will attract new companies to the I-90 corridor and will raise the region's profile as a semiconductor manufacturing hub over the next decade. And of course, there are many RADC related proposals. RADC's round 14, which includes $150 million in capital grants, DRI and NOIF, which is $200 million for city and village revitalization, FAST New York, which includes $100 million for additional shovel-ready sites, Restore, which is $50 million to combat blight, and county partnerships of $50 million. The executive budget will also continue to make historic investments in the state's transportation system to improve our transit systems, increase mobility, and grow our economy. These investments are improving roads, bridges, airports, rail facilities, transit systems, and ports. And a little bit of that detail to drill in. The executive budget continues the state's record investments on funding local highway and bridge projects. Funding for the Consolidated Highway Improvement Program, known as CHIPS, and the Marshallese program is maintained at the planned level of $577.8 million. The budget includes the third year of an annual $100 million for the Pave Our Potholes program, which I know has been really well regarded across the street. No one loves a pothole. $150 million in the Highway Aid, the New York Pave program, and $200 million to fund local projects from the Bridge New York program. The extreme winter recovery and the state touring program are funded at $100 million each and are further improving conditions on state and local roads and bridges. And of course, the governor is incredibly focused on the environment and climate change. New York State's environmental, energy, and agriculture agencies are on the front lines of the ongoing fight against climate change. They are tasked with conserving and protecting precious natural resources, promoting New York State as a natural destination for tourism and recreation, ensuring the integrity of freshwater resources, and supporting the kind of agricultural development that's critical to New York State's robust farming industry. The governor is also taking action to help New York continue to build more resilient communities and adapt to a warming world, protect access to clean water, including combating PFAS and other contaminants, and setting a new goal to plant 25 million trees across the state by 2033. It also includes an environmental protection fund investment. The executive budget includes $400 million for the EPF. It maintains the highest level of funding in the program's history. Appropriations include $48 million for solid waste programs, $106 million for parks and recreation, $175 million for open space programs, and $42 million for climate change mitigation and adaptation program. And of course, $160 million for New York Swims, focused on pools, lifeguards, and swim lessons. The executive budget proposed $150 million that's going to support this New York statewide investment in more swimming, SWIM, that's the acronym. And this initiative will support equitable and widespread access to safe swimming opportunities. New York Swims includes $60 million to build 10 new swimming pools in underserved communities, $60 million to develop and install floating pools in natural waterways, and $30 million for pop-up swimming pools that can be deployed to regions and communities that would not otherwise have access to outdoor pools. DASNY, which is New York State Dormitory Authority, and state parks have already gotten the ball rolling on this initiative by issuing a request for information to determine interest and solicit information from municipalities, local recreation commissions, not-for-profit organizations, pool vendors, and contractors that are authorized to do business in New York State that are interested in participating. This RFI will determine the state's will help the state determine how to craft this program if the money is approved in the final budget. And I urge you, if you're interested, take a look and to participate in that RFI. Housing, of course, is a top priority for the governor. Now, this budget for statewide housing creates a $500 million split over 2 years dedicated capital fund to facilitate development of housing on state property. It makes the pro-housing designation a requirement for municipalities to receive $650 million in discretionary funding and includes legislation to provide New York City with tools necessary to increase housing. executive budget also provides an additional $2.4 billion to address the migrant crisis. With the $1.9 billion already included in the fiscal year 2024 budget financial plan, the state is providing a total of $4.3 billion. The executive budget also invests $50 million in one-time federal TANF resources, locally driven anti-poverty initiatives in Rochester, $25 million, Syracuse, which has $12.5 million, and Buffalo, another $12.5 million. It provides $13 million to support the administration of the federal summer food benefits program that's estimated to provide over $200 million in benefits to over 2 million children, and provides an additional $5 million to provide year-round employment opportunities for at-risk youth through the Summer Youth Employment Program and the Youth Opportunities Program, bringing the new total to $89.2 million. The executive budget also invests $50 million. That's for, sorry. That is the, here we go. Sorry, I think this is starting to move away from me. So in sum, over the last 2 years, the state financial position has strengthened significantly. Reserves have increased to the highest levels in history. Debt levels remain nearly flat, with at least a 1% growth over the past decade. There are historic liquidity levels that are delivering high investment returns, and new resources and reserves have been established for future costs. The extraordinary influx of resources that happened during that COVID-19 period, from a federal funding perspective, have fueled these financial achievements, and they've allowed the state to make historic investments to adequately fund essential services and programs. But in her budget message, Governor Hochul stressed that her continued commitment is to fight for the rights for New Yorkers, pursue the common good with common sense by finding common ground. Together, she said, we'll make our New York and our future even stronger. Now, I want to thank all of you for being a part of this conversation, for inviting me to participate and being able to answer questions about Governor Hochul's executive budget proposal. And I'll pause now to note that I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
And just a quick reminder, if you do have questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat. They'll be picked up from there to be responded to.
I'm glad it was a thorough presentation. More than happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. If anybody has any questions, you can always send them to our office. We can communicate with Commissioner Moy's office and get responses back. This session has been recorded and it will be posted to the Finger Lakes Works YouTube page. So we'll have the information there, and we'll take highlights and bring it into the next board meeting. Anything else? Okay, Commissioner Moy and team, thank you very much. We appreciate you being here. It looks like we're getting some thank yous in the chat box. So again, thank you to you and your team. We appreciate your time this morning to give us an overview. Yep, I think we're still getting more thank yous. Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you for hosting.
Thank you.